Okay, so starting from now on, we will be working on applying very strong, very vibrant color gray to our image. So this is the image after retouching, and that's the effect we will be after. So we will be working in two stages. First, we will be working with orange. We will apply the very warm, very strong and saturated orange to the background and to the left-hand side of the face of the model. And during the second step, we will throw this very strong purple violet light on her right hand side of her face. So that's the effect we will be aiming for. Let's get back to our image and let's start working on color. In this video we will begin working on color and we will focus on orange. So let's add new adjustment layer. It's going to be color fill adjustment layer, solid color. Let's select the first option, solid color adjustment layer, and here we are aiming for quite saturated, quite warm shade of yellow. The values I have already selected here when I was preparing the initial version of this image is 221, 152 and 3. So 221 for red, 152 for green and 3 for blue. Let's confirm, let's hit OK. Next, let's change the blend mode of this layer to color and let's decrease opacity as well. Since now it's too strong, the effect is just taking over. Let's just move down with opacity. I'm just going to try it out and I'm going to stick with the values around 65%. Next step, I'm just going to mask this effect. I don't want this yellow to be affecting the model's face that strongly. So I'm just going to select the mask. Next, select brush. I'm hitting B on my keyboard. And now I will be painting on a white mask with black color. So I need to swap these color samples. As you remember, we are hitting X on the keyboard. Now the black color is selected. The size of the brush is fine. Let's just increase flow to maybe 40% and let's just paint over the face to get rid of this yellow from the model's face. Maybe let's decrease flow to 20%, 40 was too much. Let's paint further over the face, over the hands. So that way we have the preparation layer set. Next we will be working with selective color adjustment layer to finalize the applying of orange color to our image. So let's move over to the layers panel and let's selective color from the drop-down menu. Selective color is positioned at the very bottom. So having the selective color added here, we are going to access the properties of this adjustment layer. Let's move over to the properties panel. If you don't have the panel visible, move over to the Photoshop menu bar, select window, and from here you can select properties. So now we will be further working on the yellow color in this image, and what I'm going to do now is I'm after quite strong orangey cast over the image. And notice that with the selective color adjustment layer, we can be selecting either particular colors. So from the colors drop-down menu, we can select either one of these colors listed below. We can select reds, yellows, greens, and so on. However, this tool is very flexible, and apart from certain range of colors, we can select luminosity ranges. So apart from colors, we can select whites, which will mean that we have selected highlights. We can select neutrals, which will mean midtones in the histogram. And we can select blacks, which will mean that we have selected the range of shadows. Since I'm after adding strong cast to the image, I will be selecting neutrals. Remember that if you would select highlights or blacks, Typically, it always depends on the image, of course, that you are working with, but typically the highlights will be affecting much more limited area in the image, the same blacks. However, if you select neutrals, this adjustment will be applied all over the whole image. Let's start working with these adjustments with the values. So having the neutrals selected from the colors drop-down menu, now we can in a very powerful, very precise way control how these particular colors listed here are affecting the neutrals. So let's take a look at the first slider, cyan. On the color wheel, the color opposite to cyan is red, which means that if I start pulling this slider towards the right hand side, I will be adding more cyan to the midtones in this image. However, if I will go for negative values, notice this input field here, if I go for negative values, I will be adding red to the image. Let's just get back to 0, and it works exactly the same for all the other sliders. The color opposite to magenta is green, which means that if I go for negative values, I will be adding green to the midtones in the image. If I will be pushing this slider towards the right hand side, I will be adding magenta to the midtones. The color opposite to yellow is blue, so if I push the slider towards the left hand side, I'm adding blue in the neutrals in the midtones range, and if I push it towards the right hand side, I will be adding yellow. So let's get back to 0. The last slider, blacks, simply means that if I will be pushing the slider towards the right hand side, I will be adding more black to the neutrals, and if I will be pushing the slider towards the left hand side, I will be making the neutrals, the midtones in my image, brighter. Very rarely we will manipulate with the last slider. It's much better to work with either levels or curves. So let's now focus on color adjustments. So first of all, I know that I would like to add more yellow to the image, so I'm just going to manipulate with this slider and go for this really rich, very saturated orangey yellow tone. Specifically in the background, I will mask it on the face in the further part of this edit. So for the yellow, I'm going to select the value 65. Going upwards, the magenta slider, let's just see. If I go towards the left hand side, I'm going on the colder side, adding green. That's exactly not what I'm after. Let's just add a little bit more of warm tones, a little bit more of magenta. However, I don't want to overdo this, so the value around 6 is perfect. And with the cyan slider, this will be cyan to the right hand side and red to the left hand side. I'm going to definitely add more red. I don't want to add cold colors, so I will be pushing the slider to the value around negative 45. So to quickly recap, we have selected the neutrals range, which means the midtones range in the histogram and the midtones in our image. And the values we went for is negative 45 for cyan, 6 for magenta, and 65 for yellow. This is the result we have achieved after manipulating with the selective color adjustment layer. So as the next step, we are going to select these two layers and we are going to group them. So let's hit Command G, and I'm going to rename this folder as yellow, so we will know that inside this folder we have all these adjustment layers that are applying yellow. Since I have these two adjustment layers inside and I have already masked that one, I'm not going to mask this adjustment layer here using the mask. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to assign mask to the overall folder, so at one go I can apply the further adjustments, I can polish the look I have achieved, and I want to get rid a bit of this orangey from the face. So having the folder selected, I'm hitting on this icon here. That way I have added mask to my image. And since I want to maintain the effect, I want to only slightly make it less visible in selected areas of the face. I will be painting on a white mask with black color, which is already selected here. If you have white color, simply hit X. That way you will swap the color samples and select brush, either from Photoshop toolbar or by hitting B on your keyboard. Flow 20 is fine. So let's adjust size of the brush, and actually I'm going to go down with flow 20 is too much. I'm going to go for 5%, and I'm just going to paint over selected areas in the picture to make this yellow a little bit less visible in the face. Okay, so at this point I am happy with the way the yellow is affecting my image. In the next video I will be applying the violet, the purple light, and then after having these two colors in my image, I can perform the final adjustment. So at this point I don't really know if the mask is already in its final stage or if it would benefit from further fine-tuning. So I'm going to leave it as it is at this point. Now add the other light, the other color, and in the end I can balance all these effects to create my final artwork. So let's jump to the next clip and let's add the violet light to our image.